A round of applause for Napoli, De Laurentiis, Conte, the entire board for having some ambition, learning from their mistakes. When De Laurentiis and Napoli won the Scudetto in 2023, what did they do? Spalletti left the club. There was uncertainty about Chiavara to Osimhen. Obviously, Kim Min-jae left the team. Then they hired Rudy Garcia. But De Laurentiis has learned his... And if you look at some of the signings that Napoli made from the 23-24 season, Nathan Cayuste, Chedira, Jesper Lindström, Hamad Traore, De Donker. I mean, some of these transfers were horrendous. But this summer, Conte and Napoli, they mean business. This is not just some one-off, one-night thing at the club. No. Conte and Napoli want to dominate Serie A football. So let's talk about their transfer window as of right now. And we'll talk about what other signings they need to make in order to really strengthen their position as the top dog in the Serie A. Give me a rating right now of Napoli's window. What would you give it? Would you give it an 8, a 7, a 9, a 10 out of 10? So let's talk about the signings here. I think the number one thing we have to talk about before anything with these transfers, the key was to keep Conte. There were so many rumors about, okay, there could be a breakup between Conte and De Laurentiis. Maybe Conte will go back to Juventus. There was so many rumors at the beginning of the summer. And then all of a sudden, he said, I'm going to stay. Conte was probably threatening De Laurentiis and said, give me the signings or I bounce. I'm out of here. And De Laurentiis said, okay, I learned from my mistakes. I'm going to back you, Conte. Let's do the business. And wow, what a transfer window they've had, and they've learned from their mistakes, and Conte is now going to strengthen his team even more with some of these signings that I think perfectly fit in what Conte wants to do. Conte is not going to be stubborn and just play one way. He's not going to just play 3-4-3, a 3-5-2, or a 4-3-3. He can play so many different ways now with these new additions alongside the squad that he already has. So Sam Belkame from Bologna for 31 million euros, I think is a pretty good deal because he's experienced in the Serie A, had a really good season with Bologna. I think him and Lukumi were an underrated partnership last year in the Serie A. But Salve Come brings experience. Now you have Rahmani, obviously Buongiorno. Hopefully he can have a healthy season because he's really talented center back, but just the injuries cost him last year. Now they have depth in the center back position where now Nathan goes to Real Betis. I think Salve Come is a good signing. Noah Long. Now this is a signing I'm excited for because Noah Long's had such a frustrating career. Disputes with Eric Ten Hag, disputes about his, personality, his drive about the game. He went to Club Brugge, learned his lesson, then went to PSV. He does have like an injury record, which isn't the greatest, so that's a little bit of a concern I would have if I'm Napoli fans. But Noah Long, he can bring a different element to this Napoli team. They didn't have a dribbler on the team last year. The only dribbler they had was basically Anguissa and David Neres. You can say Politano. Politano is a decent dribbler, but Politano, I think his crosses are his best element of his game. Now you have Noah Long. Down that left side, there's an added threat there for Napoli because so many times last season, even though they did really well to win games 1-0, 2-0, Anguissa or Scott McSauce or Lukaku coming up with a clutch goal, it felt like the attacks down the wing, they were really, really lacking overall throughout the season. Now they got Noah Long. Now you compare him with David Neres. I think that's a good combination. Noah Long, he's going to be much more motivated, going to a massive club like Napoli after they just won the Scudetto, playing Champions League football. I think it's a really good signing, and not for a crazy price either. 25 million for Noah Long at the prime of his age? Then it gets interesting. Vanja Milinkovic-Savic, 6'8", Serbian bodyguard who looks like a bodyguard for Nikola Jokic, who has been unbelievable for Torino the past 2 seasons. They sign him. This is going to be a game-changing signing. Meret had a bounce-back season last year, but maybe you have some question marks if you're Napoli fan still about Meret. Now you get Milinkovic-Savic on loan with the 21 million obligation to buy. He could have easily started for most teams. I mean, Manchester United should have signed him. You could even say Chelsea. You could say other teams. Napoli said, we're going to get this goalkeeper. And he joins. And I think it's going to be so difficult because we know how good Napoli were defensively last season, even with Meret. Now you add Milinkovic-Savic, who could become the starting goalkeeper for Napoli. This is a game-changing signing for me. His shot stopping is ridiculous. His shot stopping on penalties, ridiculous. So this is a fantastic signing for Napoli. Now they have competition in the goalkeeping position. Now Meret, you have to step up. You cannot be so inconsistent. Even though last year I don't think he was that inconsistent. I think now Milinkovic-Savic joining the team, I mean, crazy. You know, he prevented over 11 goals last season in the Serie A. 11 by himself. I mean, it's really, really good goalkeeper. And another signing is Lorenzo Luca from Udinese, another loan with an obligation to buy. I think it's like 30 million of obligation to buy. This one, I'm a little like, like he's okay. Like, okay, he's tall. He's a physical striker, brings that aerial threat to Napoli when they want to put crosses into the box, but I feel like a Darwin Núñez would have been a better option. Not that I'm like a Liverpool fan and say, hey, take Darwin. I think Darwin, when he goes to his next club, is going to flourish massively. And I think Darwin going under Antonio Conte would have been a beautiful thing. And he brings a different element. More speed, threat in behind. When Napoli want to play on the counterattack, Darwin Núñez is the perfect option in that position. So I feel like Lorenzo Luca, it's an okay signing. Yes, he's, Serie A proven, but he's decent with the hold-up play. But maybe Napoli were like, okay, if we're frustrated against a low block, let's just put crosses in with, obviously, the next player we're going to talk about with his delivery, or, Politano, David Neres, or combination play with Noah Long. So the Lorenzo Luca signing, I'm a little bit, like, iffy about, but as a super sub, I think it's a good option. The rotate with Lukaku, good. I feel like Napoli just needed a different sort of striker compared to Lorenzo Luca. They just needed more pace in behind, and I think that's why Darwin Núñez would have been perfect. And then obviously they got the free transfer of Kevin De Bruyne. 34 years old, makes the free transfer. It's amazing to see Kevin De Bruyne go to Napoli because, yes, people can criticize and say, oh, he looked overweight in his first game in preseason. Do you know who the manager is? Antonio Conte will make him do 10 Cooper tests before the season begins. If he got Lukaku in crazy shape at Inter, wait till KDB. KDB will be fine at the beginning of the season. Yes, he's not going to have the legs and play like 38 games a season. He's getting old and you can just tell like his body is kind of taking its toll on him. But still, ability on the ball. He could probably play more as like an 8 compared to a number 10 because his passing ability is insane. So KDB, I think, is another really good signing from Napoli's perspective for a free transfer. Brings a different element. I mean, the midfield depth for Napoli right now, Billy Gilmore, Scott McSauce, Anguissa, Lobotka. Maybe they could use another option there, but I still think that KDB is going to flourish highly under Antonio Conte. And yeah, I think it's a really good signing. So with all of these signings, I would probably say Napoli's window is like an 8 to an 8.5 out of 10. I still think they need another winger. Who could that be? Could it be like an Antonio Nusa? If they get Antonio Nusa Napoli, I know he's not the most consistent with RB Leipzig and he's dealt with some injuries, but the kid has insane quality and he's young still. Conte could really highlight his ability with a certain tactic or certain formation. I think if Napoli can secure the signing of Antonio Nusa, that is a game-changing sign. I think it was a good thing they didn't go for Ndoye and Ndoye chose to go to Nottingham Forest because Ndoye is a good player, but 40 million, I wouldn't be so confident. I think he's a really good player for Switzerland. Had a good season with Bologna, but he's not a crazy goal scorer. I think Antonio Nusa can get you like 15 goals a season if he stays healthy and really reaches his potential. I mean, look what he did to Italy in the World Cup qualifiers, people. When he plays to his full potential on the day, an unstoppable player for me. Maybe they need somebody on the right side. They have Neres. Obviously, they have Politano. But could you use a player like Kubo? Possibly. That could be an option. Chiesa, who can play left or right. So maybe that's what Antonio Conte wants to sign next. He wants to sign another sort of player in the forward line to really help with the attacking options that he can throw at different teams. And then maybe another midfielder. Could that be like Miretti from Juventus? I would say another right back to just bring cover for Di Lorenzo. So Napoli really mean business. And I think that's a great thing for Napoli fans is like, yes, we won the Scudetto, but we won the Scudetto 2 years ago. And look what happened after that. Disaster. Rudy Garcia. I mean, it was such a horrific season for Napoli, even though they still had really good players. But you could just tell the motivation, the cohesiveness of the squad, it was gone. This summer, they really learned their lesson, and I think that's down to Conte because Conte is a serial winner. This guy will win at any cost. And now getting these players, you bring physicality, you bring technique, you bring just more defensive qualities that Napoli didn't really need, but they added it with Milinkovic-Savic and Abel Kema. Now you got to just strengthen one more piece in the forward line, and Napoli could be having like a 9.5 out of 10 sort of window. And this is a scary proposition, I think, for the rest of Serie A. Because everybody thought, okay, maybe Antonio Conte will leave Napoli and Napoli will kind of regress once again like when Spalletti left Napoli. But the fact they kept him and the fact that De Laurentiis is now going to spend the money, and obviously, yes, Osimhen is going to Galatasaray, and we knew that relationship was already over. But then Inter and Juventus, Milan, other clubs were probably hoping like Napoli, just don't do any business. De Laurentiis, don't learn from your lesson. De Laurentiis said, no. We want to dominate. We want to win 2 in a row. Then we want to win 3 in a row. We want to win the Coppa Italia. I think the biggest thing here for Napoli is going far in the Champions League. And that's been the big problem for Antonio Conte in his coaching career. His European record isn't the greatest. He's obviously made 1 Europa League final with Inter and I think 1 quarterfinal appearance in the Champions League. That's it. For how much of a GOAT he is in league terms, the European campaigns have been awful from Antonio Conte. Now Antonio Conte can rotate because last season, he basically threw away the Coppa Italia. He just wanted to have 1 game a week and it worked out. If it didn't work out, you could give some criticism to Antonio Conte for just forgetting about the Coppa Italia, but he won the Scudetto. Now this season, they'll compete in the Coppa Italia, the Champions League, and the Serie A. So they needed to make these signings, bring more quality, and I'm really excited to see how Antonio Conte is going to use this team because it's going to be different every single week. Like I said, it could be 3-4-2-1 one week. The next week, it could be 3-5-2 with Lorenzo Luca and Lukaku playing next to each other. The next week, 4-3-3, 4-3-2-1. It is going to be fascinating to see how Antonio Conte will set up with this team against different opponents. And Napoli fans should be excited. I think they're in store for a very, very exciting couple of years with Antonio Conte and these new players who are all in the primes of their careers. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. How would you rate Napoli's window at this moment? And what other signings do they need to make in order to really secure a great window? Remember to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Remember to follow me on all the socials, Instagram, Twitter, join the Discord, all those links, description down below. But have a beautiful day. Stay safe in this crazy world. Till next time, adios.